Good afternoon, everyone, or whenever you're tuning into this. If you've stuck around my channel for long enough, you realize that I am a big baseball fan, and unfortunately, there have been three very prominent, very good Hall of Famers that have passed away recently. And within the past few days, well, we'll start with Joe Morgan here. He was the central figure, at least one of the central figures of the Big Red Machine of the 70s here, and man, he was only 77. We're going to go through, I'll give you a couple of stats on each of these guys, but it's really tragic because, well, at 77, he was still, quite a prominent figure, quite a young man, all things considered. And as much love as he gets for his broadcasting, he was a terrific second baseman, really set the standard for, well, decades to come for second baseman. Joe Morgan, the Hall of Fame second baseman, who was the National League's most valuable player for 2 consecutive seasons and the engine of the Big Red Machine, as the Cincinnati Reds of the 1970s, one of baseball's most powerful teams, were known, passed away on Sunday at his home in Danville, California. He was 77. For younger fans, Morgan may be mainly familiar as a television commentator, most memorably for ESPN, for which he shared a Sunday night broadcast booth with John Miller for 21 seasons. And I was very well aware of Joe Morgan. If you guys played the ESPN 2K baseball games, I think that they were really great up until about 2008, 2009. But he was one of the voices on there, and people, a second generation, really got to know Joe Morgan, and those voiceovers were all well and good, but he really had a goofy little tick in his batting stance, and it can't be overstated how great he was, and what a central figure he was alongside Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, probably the greatest catcher ever, and Tony Perez, who was no slouch either. Those four guys there, all, well, with the exception of Pete Rose, which is kind of fucking stupid, but he's paid his debt to society. Christ, they're all, should be first ballot Hall of Famers. So he's the first one to go out of that crew, and it's a sad state of affairs, really. He won 5 consecutive Gold Gloves, led the National League second baseman and fielding percentage 3 times, and finished second 6 other times. In the era when sliding base runners routinely tried to take out second baseman to prevent double play, Morgan was known, as an especially tough pivot. That dude would stand there regardless of who was barreling down on him. He fucking stood there like a statue, my dude. And just a little bit more background before we dig into the stats here. Morgan made his big league debut with the Houston Colt 45s, which is a great name for a baseball team. Just like the Washington Bullets is a great basketball name. But whatever, political correctness, suck my dick. A second-year National League expansion team in September 1963, just after his 20th birthday. The next year, he came under the tutelage of Nellie Fox, a veteran second baseman at the end of his career, also small in stature, whom Morgan credited with helping him mature as a player. It was Fox who suggested to Morgan that if he held his left elbow higher in the batter's box, which he would, I know the camera's going to cut me off, but he would be up here, and then he'd just have a little bit of a tick. The rear elbow for a left-handed hitter like Morgan, like I demonstrated there. He wouldn't hit under the baseball as often. He would hit fewer pop-ups and more line drives, which is exactly what he did throughout the rest of his career. Dude was a contact hitter, and he would have, like it said here, he had surprising power for a man his size, hitting at least 22 home runs in 4 seasons and 268 overall. He was among the most accomplished base stealers of all time. Exactly, does not get enough credit for that. He stole 689 bases, baseball's 11th highest total, in 851 attempts for 81% success rate. So, at least in my opinion, when you're looking at great base runners, it's all about the percentage of success. And 81% leaps off the page. Now we've got his career numbers here, and what really leaps off the page here is when he was in his prime, when he was from 31 in 75, probably until the end of his tenure with the Cincinnati Reds there, just put up career numbers and was always a consistent all-star. And then also in 75 and 76 winning the MVP, a Gold Glove, and was an all-star. Like, come on, man. He up there with second baseman, probably with Rod Carew, Robbie Alomar, Toronto bias, but fair enough. He is a Hall of Famer, for fuck's sakes. one of only two Toronto Blue Jays to actually have their number retired, and mercilessly smokes Craig Biggio, who I don't think should be a Hall of Famer, but that's a discussion for another day. But I think that's a fitting encapsulation of the impact that Joe Morgan had on his career. And just before he passed, Whitey Ford also passed, and this dude definitely does not get enough credit. He was overshadowed at a time where the left-handed starting pitcher was there was a model example in the league on the opposite coast, and his name was Sandy Koufax, and Whitey would have won 1,000 more accolades had not been for the undivided league awards, because at this time when he was pitching in the 50s and the 60s, the Cy Young was an overall all-encompassing league-wide award, so he only got to win it once, and Sandy Koufax won every fucking year and set all the records. But Whitey Ford doesn't get discussed enough. You know all of the legendary hitters that the New York Yankees has produced, and I won't run down the list because we'd be here all fucking day. But Ford is without a doubt the greatest starting pitcher in New York Yankees history. I can't say pitcher overall because Mariano Rivera does exist, but I normally don't like to use the New York Times, but their sports coverage is pretty decent, and they do a great job eulogizing each three of these individuals. Whitey Ford, the Yankees Hall of Fame left-hander who was celebrated as the chairman of the board. Great nickname. If there's any better nickname out there, man, chairman of the board, like what? Okay, Whitey Ford and Frank Sinatra. Yeah, that's pretty elite company. For his stylish pitching and big game brilliance on the ball clubs that dominated baseball in the 50s and early 60s, died Thursday night at his home in Lake Success, New York on Long Island. He was 91 years old, lived a nice full life. The Yankees announced his death. Pitching for 11 pennant winners and 6 World Series champions, Ford won 236 games, the most of any Yankee, and that is going to be a record that's going to stand forever because nobody pitches to the great lengths that he did. The last person who could have ever touched those kind of records, at least in my opinion, probably Roy Halladay, the last guy who would actually go out there and aim to pitch over 200 innings in a year. It's just never going to happen again. And had a career winning percentage of .690, the best among pitchers with 200 or more victories in the 20th century. And that's the benefit of having those baseball teams with all of those fucking bangers on it. But it's not all sunshine and roses. Whitey did kind of like to, fuck it, I'll just come out and say he liked to cheat a little bit. Made sure that the mud ball was a prominent thing. In retirement too, that Ford acknowledged what had always widely been expected. Or suspected, rather. He sometimes doctored the baseball. He said he created mud balls by mixing saliva and dirt, used a concoction of baby oil, turpentine, and resin to make sticky fingers, and had a ring made with a specially attached rasp to cut baseballs, all to make a pitch break unexpectedly and produce strikeouts or ground balls, and to help win championships. Let's be real, that's an egregious offense, but he wasn't the only person doing it at this time. There weren't so many cameras that could zoom in as well as they could now, and, let's not pretend like that generation was fucking full of saints now. When they weren't smacking baseballs, they were smacking their wives just as hard, so let's not be too hard on the past. Ford held a number of still-standing World Series records. Among them, 302 consecutive innings of scoreless pitching. Amazing. That is... I don't care what the fuck he was doing. That is amazing. He was savvy from the start, a puzzle that batters struggle to solve. He would start with a fastball inside, a curveball outside, then reverse that. Or start you with a changeup. He played games with everybody, every hitter I ever talked to. He made them hit his pitch, and it usually was something they didn't like. Exactly, because you see a lot of young pitchers out there nowadays just following their stupid pitching coaches' basic ass instructions. You set up off the fastball, which is great advice, but if you immediately start throwing off your breaking pitch, if you keep that eye line at the same level, you are bound to fall into a trap, and that's what makes so many one-hit wonders out there. That's why you had guys like Dontrell Willis dominate for one full season and then come back and couldn't replicate it. That's why you have many more current day examples, like as a Blue Jays fan, Here's a name that you probably haven't heard in a long time, Gustavo Chassin. The guy would always start off with a curveball. He had a wicked, wicked, wicked curveball, but that was it. And everybody knew what was coming because he tried to establish that curve to start off with, and then he'd sneak in a fucking low 80s fastball. And if you aren't Greg Maddux, if you aren't Mark Burley, if you can't control your shit, you are going to get lit the fuck up. And, you know, Whitey set the standard. God, it sounds funny to say that. But he really did by mixing up his game plan. It was never the second game twice. And it doesn't say, I've switched over to a stats page now. Obviously, it doesn't look like tax, duh. But, yeah, in 51 and 52, the dude went over and served in the Korean War in the Army. Fucking hats off for the fact that you could come in, originally be, he was undrafted. He came in, he signed a free agent contract, and and immediately made an impact, going 9-1 with a 2.81 ERA. And a rookie, even then, throwing 112 innings. Most rookies today, or even just guys recovering from Tommy Johns, aren't throwing 100 innings. So that's the difference between old school and the new school. And this is what you love to see. Even think of Roger Clemens what you will. But he always chalked up his success to the fact that he was throwing every single day. And even, look at Whitey Ford's career. Realistically started in 53 when he was 24 years old, and then he wrapped up he had a 14-year career where he was throwing fucking over 200 innings thereabouts, except for 2 seasons, so over 12 years. And guys nowadays just want to manage their innings, and if they get up close to 200, you got to start pulling them from games. I understand there's a lot of money in baseball, but there is a case to be made that these arms aren't being stretched out enough, and that's what's creating the injuries. But that's another topic for another day. Whitey Ford was a fucking workhorse who went out there, that tricked batters, got ground balls, and struck out motherfuckers when he needed to. Just a underrated Yankees legend, and at least the man got to live out a nice, long, full life and got to see a bunch of successful and be a part of a bunch of successful Yankees teams. As much as being a Blue Jays fan hurts me to say that, but and now we'll probably go to the most prolific name on the list, and one that definitely hurts, because when it comes to old school baseball players, guys who played well before I was born, I've always revered Bob Gibson, because this fucking dude revolutionized his position in the 60s. Throwing heat, easy heat. We'll eventually get to it, but they had to lower the mound because this guy was so good. Yeah, they actually had to fix the game, like how Mel Blount was such an effective cornerback. They had to change the rules on defense for him. And Bob Gibson set the standard when it comes to being a world-beating pitcher, and they had to even out the game for him. So, his opponents would have a chance. Bob Gibson, the St. Louis Hall of Fame right-hander who became one of baseball's most dominant pitchers, winning 251 games in 17 seasons with the intimidating fastball and an attitude to match, died on Friday in Omaha. He was 84 years old. The cause was pancreatic cancer, the Cardinals said. Gibson announced in July 2019 through his agent that he had the disease. Unfortunate way to go. If it's not the most deadly form of cancer, it's the second most deadly form of cancer, and a fate I would wish on nobody. I know I've mentioned I don't like the idea of certain individuals on this channel, but never wish death on anybody. Never wish harm on anybody, really. I just talk a lot of shit, His death came a month after his teammate Lou Brock, the Hall of Fame outfielder, had passed as well. Through the summers in the 1960s and early 70s, Gibson proved a relentless force, and he was at his best in the World Series. He won both the National League's Most Valuable Player Award and the Cy Young Award as the league's best pitcher in '68 when he won 22 games, struck out 268 batters, pitched 13 shutouts. That's 9 innings. No earned run baseball. That is unprecedented now. What the fuck? Last time Clayton Kershaw had a sub-2 ERA for a season, I think he only threw a handful of complete games, and Bob was out here throwing 13 like it ain't nobody's problem, and posted an earned run average of, he wasn't a reliever by the way, folks, 1.12. still the lowest since the advent of the lively ball era in 1920, and the fourth lowest in Major League history. 1.12. Most closers don't have a 1.12 ERA. It's the greatest starting pitcher season of all time, without a doubt. I change my mind, but I think without a doubt, striking out 268, posting a 1.12 in the 60s and 70s in the fucking National League. The National League were full of killers at this time. He was blowing people away. And like I'd mentioned before, when they lowered the pitcher's mound, take a look at this. The next year, even though Major League Baseball lowered the pitcher's mound to give batters a break, Gibson won 20 games and struck out 269. And you know what? We're just going to go ahead and hop to his statistics here because, yeah, you fucking won't believe it. Yeah, it went up a full point, and that still is, 2.18 ERA. Innings pitched, 300 innings, nearly 300 innings on several occasions. Topping 200 strikeouts in a season on 7 different occasions, winning 2 World Series, 9 Gold Gloves, and a 9-time All-Star, as well as winning the National League MVP. The last time a pitcher would win that, until Clayton Kershaw did. So yeah, man, for my money, he is the best pitcher of the 60s for sure. He just absolutely dominated people, just absolutely overpowered them. And yeah, it's unfortunately that we had to lose, well, these three, and then prior to that we lost Lou Brock and Tom Seaver as well earlier in the year, and all very important figures in baseball that deserve your respect if you are unaware of who they are. And hopefully I was able to paint a picture on why I revere these men so much, because you need to understand your history in order to properly appreciate your present and set the stage for the future. Sounds a little bit corny, but that's what I think. I think that'll about do it for this retrospective on these 3 great Hall of Famers, and I appreciate the gift of your guys' time. And I've been Don Consuelo. I want you guys to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.